Ladies and gentlemen, can we have silence, please? We're just about to commence the meeting. Thank you. Hello, everybody. A warm welcome to those attending and to our viewers watching live on the Council YouTube website, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Henry Higgins. I'm the chairman of this committee. Details of our business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible online under this broadcast if you look on the broadcast. For those present in the room and attending to speak, please note that you are being filmed and any statements you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anyone speaking today that your voice will only be audible online when you turn on the microphone. Fire alarm, we'll go to the fire alarms. We're not expecting any drills, so if the fire alarm goes off, please follow the officers to the fire exits and out of the building to designated areas. Please, if those who have mobiles, can you please either turn them off or put them on silent? Just a note that councillors are allowed to use their laptops and stuff in front of them for the committee as they review the agendas. First we'll go, there's no apologies for absence, so I'll go straight to the attendees. Can everybody acknowledge that they are here? Councillor Morgan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morse.
Present, Mr. Chairman. Apologies for delay.
Councillor Wallow.
Good evening, Chairman, and good evening, everyone. I am present.
Councillor Birra.
Good evening, Chairman and everyone. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman. Councillor Kaufman.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
They throw me because they put someone else in here and it's not here. And planning officers. First, I'd like to introduce my main planning officer. This is Kate Crosby.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Planning Service Manager, Rods Johnson.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Transport Officer, Alan Tilley.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
To keep me in check, the Legal Advisor, Kerry Munro.
Good evening, Chairman and everybody. I am present.
Thank you very much. And Democratic Service Officer, which we wouldn't be able to do this meeting without, Anisha Teddy.
Present.
Thank you very much. We'll go straight to the agenda. So apologies for absence. Anisha?
No apologies, Chairman.
Declarations of interest in matters coming before us. Can you put your microphone on, please, for me, Councillor Kaufman? Microphone on.
Sorry, Chairman, yes, I have a declaration. I have an interest in 54A Edwards Avenue.
Is that pecuniary or non-pecuniary?
Non-pecuniary.
Thank you. So you'll be leaving the meeting or staying? You'll be leaving the meeting, yeah? Okay. Thank you. My microphone went dead there. We'll start again. For petitioners this evening, and that you will have 5 minutes to speak, and whether that is written or vote if you're in the room attending. With councillors, they have 3 minutes, and that will apply to them too. It'll be 3 minutes to speak if they're attending, and if they write in, Anisha will be timed for 3 minutes reading it out. Okay, so first item on the agenda is item 6. Which is 34 Aspen Grove, Eastcote. Katie, would you like to take us away on that one?
Yep, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. The first application on tonight's agenda is for a 3-metre deep single-storey rear extension to a dwelling at number 34 Aspen Grove in Eastcote. So let's look at the site here. You can see that it's within the greenbelt. Okay, so this is the existing ground floor and the proposed ground floor. So you can see the single-storey rear extension there. It's to the rear of the property, and it essentially just accommodates a dining room to the kitchen. And just show the elevations as well. So That's the rear elevation with the monopitched roof and side elevation there. So officer's recommendation is to approve the application. The reason for referral is that it's a petition item with 22 signatures as well as 6 objections. This application originally included a first floor rear extension as well. However, this element's been removed from the proposal, so it's now just the single-storey rear extension. So we consulted the reasons raised in the petition and objections principally concerned the first floor extension. This is detailed on page 6 of the reports pack. So following the revisions, we reconsulted on the revised drawings and no further representations were received. So planning officers have assessed the single-storey rear extension and given its small subordinate scale, it would not adversely affect neighbours or the character of the greenbelt area in which it's located. Therefore, officers recommend that the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. We have the organiser and the applicant are not present, but they've written in a few statements which Anisha will read out.
Thank you, Chairman. The petition organiser confirmed that they're not attending today as the plan has been revised to remove the second storey on the rear extension. I will not be attending the meeting. And a written submission from the applicant. This is a letter which we will be submitting as a written representation with regards to the property 34 Aspen Grove, application number 76496/app/2021/2303. The proposal which we have submitted looks to seek planning permission granted for a single-storey rear extension. This was reduced from a double-storey rear extension which was initially submitted, but due to neighbours complaining about the design, we have reduced it. The single-storey rear extension complies with policy DMHD1 as maximum height is 3.4 metres and 2.2 metres at eave height, as well as the overall depth of the extension is 3 metres from the original footprint of the dwelling. Not to mention the material used on the extension will be like the existing dwelling. There will be no impact on the greenbelt as the proposal is not a disproportionate addition to the original property. The single-storey extension is very modest in scale. The proposed extension would match the depth of the neighbour's existing conservatory, as such would not have any sort of adverse impact on the neighbour's residential amenity. Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. It seems they've sorted themselves out between themselves. That's quite nice to hear. Councillor Morgan, you're going to take me away on this one, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any problems with this, but just for being accurate, it's not actually in East Cope, it's in Northwood Hills. It's on the land that used to be St Vincent's Hospital, and that has always been in Northwood Hills. Could officers just add an extra on this, the removal of future PDs, please? That will stop loft conversions and things like that. These houses are very, very tightly packed in that area, and that would save overlooking. Other than that, I'm happy to go with officers' recommendations and approve this application.
Can officers come back on that question, please?
I think in terms of restricting permitted development, it wouldn't be, there is already a permitted lawful development certificate issued for a rear roof dormer extension to this property. So we couldn't retrospectively take that away from them. And I guess in terms of an overdevelopment of the site, a single-storey rear extension with a rear roof dormer extension, I wouldn't necessarily consider that would be an overdevelopment of the dwelling. But that would, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can say on that.
Okay, let's answer that. Councillor Moores.
Mr. Chairman, the only one aspect that is regrettable is the loss of amenity space, but I accept officers' argument that does not justify a case of refusal. But I certainly do support Councillor Morgan's point about removing permitted development.
Yeah, but if we've already had the certificate, we can't go back on that. So there we go. Anyway, so I've got proposed, and you seconding that, Councillor Morse? Are you seconding that, Councillor Morse, or not?
Well, are you proposing?
Yeah, he's proposed it.
Oh, then I will formally second as the lead. Yeah,
fine.
that's fine.
I think I've got Councillor. You indicate.
Just about a second.
Oh, that's fine. So it's been proposed and second. Can I have show of hands and votes, please? So that's unanimous as proposed as officer's recommendation. Okay. Then we go on to item number 7. And Kate, do you want to take us on that one?
Okay, item number 7 is for two-story detached houses at the end of Portman Gardens. The address itself, though, is 51 Sweetcroft Lane in Hillingdon. And as you can see on this image here, Sweetcroft Lane is to the north and Portman Gardens is to the west, southwest. Okay, so the officer's recommendation for this application is to approve. The reason for referral is that there is a petition with 44 signatures. There's also 32 individual objections from 16 separate addresses. The matters raised are summarised on page 31 of the reports pack and are addressed within the main body of the officer's report. So I guess to have the best appreciation of the proposal, it's most useful to start with the site plans and photos of the site and area. So as you can see here, the entrance is there's a narrow entrance at the top of Sweetcroft Lane that goes down to the dwelling to the south of the site there. So here you can see that it's in the Hillingdon Court Park area of special local character, and to the bottom there it's adjacent to but not within the greenbelt itself. This is just another image of the dwelling. Oops, close up there. This is actually the proposal. So if we go back one step, you can see the single dwelling here. And with the proposed site plan, you can see that they're wanting to extend the footway and roadway of Portman Gardens into here. So you have the two houses here. As you can see, they're generally consistent front and rear building lines along Portman Gardens that the new dwellings would fit in with. They're similar in proportions to the homes on Portman Gardens, as well as they maintain setbacks around the sides here from the site boundaries. And you can also see that each house would have a driveway with vehicle parking for 2 vehicles on each side. Okay, so if we go to the bird's eye view here, so the existing access from Sweetcroft Lane up here, this would be closed. So we've got conditions requiring boundary treatment details of the front, and they'll also need to reinstate the footway and remove the redundant crossover that's at the top here. Okay, so we just go through some more photos. This is just a close-up. This is the house itself, and this is Portman Gardens. Close-up of it there. Okay, this is the entrance from Sweetcroft Lane. So if you're looking at the top north of the site, coming down towards the house, this is the driveway that you'll go down. This is when you approach the house, this is the house here on the site. And this is the rear of the house, or the rear that's facing towards the parkland. And Portman Gardens is to the left through here. So this is on Portman Gardens itself, so you can see the outline of the existing house. So this is where the roadway and footway would be extended. And then there'll be one dwelling on this side and one dwelling on this side. This is the more street view. So this is the properties if you're looking down Portman Gardens on the right-hand side, and this is the ones on the left-hand side. And this is just a close-up of the nearest one on the left. Okay, and this is just a long view of Portman Gardens, just to get an idea of the types of houses down the street. Okay, so this existing site plan. And again, just the proposed where the dwellings will be located. Okay, so the site does have a planning history of 2 previous refusals, and these were dismissed on appeal as well. So the reasons for refusal can be summarised as a cramped development of the site that fails to harmonise with the established character of the area, principally due to the siting, layout and design of the proposals. So actually if we just click forward one, this was the first application that was refused. So as you can see, there's 4 houses that have been cramped into small plot sizes, and on the elevations down here, you can see the top-heavy design and large scale of the house. So then subsequently, the applicant submitted, go back one, this one. So they've reduced the number of dwellings, but you can still see it's still cramped on the top here, and the design is pretty much still the same. So if we go back to the proposed site plan here, conversely you can see that this application has kept the lower number of two homes and sited them within the site opposite each other, so here and here now, and they retain a comfortable layout within the site, with each plot having separation distances from the site boundaries. So if we just go to the street scene elevations, just to compare from the previous to this one. So these are the proposed street scene elevations. So you can see the house here sitting comfortably amongst the existing dwellings on Portman's garden, sorry. And that's the rear elevation of the house. So this is just close-ups of the front elevation. This is house A, and the rear elevation, house A as well, but also house B is the mirror image of house A, so the elevations look the same, but they're just on opposite sides of the road. Oops. And this is a section across the road, so you can see house A on the right and house B on the left. So just to quickly go through the floor plan of one of the houses, because they are mirror images, just to show you what's proposed. You've got the living accommodation on the ground floor, and then on the first floor it's a 4-bedroom dwelling, so you've got the 4 bedrooms here. Okay, so officers have assessed the proposal and considered the appeal history, and consider that this application overcomes the previous reasons for refusal. The revised design represents a continuation of the established pattern of development and would be in keeping with the houses on Portman Gardens in terms of scale, layout and design, and would integrate well with the street scene and the wider ASLC. There would also be sufficient parking on site with no harm to neighbouring amenity. Therefore, officers recommend that the application is approved. I'd also just like to draw members' attention to the addendum report that has been circulated. Since the publication of the committee report, a request from the lead petitioner to defer this application has been received. Officers are of the opinion that this application should be reported this evening, and this is discussed further in the addendum. I would also like to advise members that clarification has been sought from the agent that House B is a mirror image of House A, which it is. So to this end, additional elevation drawings have been added to this recommendation just to confirm this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. That's a good presentation there. Also, members can be aware that there is an addendum to this, okay? So we go from there. So we have an objector, Webra. Yeah, thank you. You'll have your 5 minutes. The lights will come up. Green when you start. An amber light means you've got 1 minute left. And then red, I will stop you on the 5-minute mark, okay?
Sorry, before I start, can we just clarify that I was meant to have some slides on the screen, but I think they've circulated a hard copy pack for the councillors to look at, which I can refer to.
Yeah, we've all councillors have had those emailed to them and have reviewed them. There's hard copies for any councillors that wish them. Does any councillor wish to have them? Have you got them in front of you? Yeah, okay, fine. There we go. So your 5 minutes will start now.
Thank you. Good evening. So the issues raised within the petition and letters of objection summarised in the first slide in my pack there, they're a matter of record, so I don't want to dwell on them too much. I want to move forward to some points that you want to add some focus to in this presentation. So the first area is in the Hillingdon Local Plan, Part 1 and 2, there's a policy DMH6, which is garden and backland development. It says there's a presumption against the loss of gardens due to the need to maintain local character, amenity space and biodiversity. In exceptional cases, limited scale of backland development may be acceptable, subject to following criteria. And point 3 of the criteria clearly states, development on backland sites must be more intimate in mass and scale and lower than frontage properties. Just to repeat, development on backland sites must be more intimate in mass and scale and lower than frontage properties. So, referring to slide 3 in my pack, this is a picture of the houses from the south elevation. The one on the far right is proposed house A. And as you can see, it's a scale drawing. It clearly shows that house A is at least 50% larger by volume than the adjacent houses on Portman Gardens. Specifically, the new houses are approximately 1.5 times the width of houses on Portman Gardens. The front apex areas are also substantially larger. So the same is applicable to proposed house B on the south side. So our conclusion is that newly proposed houses are not in keeping with point 3 of policy DMH6 from the council. So moving forward to some internal consultations from the officer's report, the Urban Design and Conservation Officer has said in his paragraph, the proposed demolition of the existing property and subdivision of the site for 2 dwellings would continue the erosion of the ASLC's original planned layout. The intensification of the site would be an extension of Portman Gardens, establishing the unwelcome precedent of other sites being developed in the same manner. This is slide 4. Just to repeat, establishing the unwelcome precedent of other sites being developed in the same manner. So next slide, slide number 5, is another internal consultation, the highway engineer. So they actually mention the fact that Sweetcroft Lane has extensive parking and waiting restrictions, and it says whilst Portman Gardens is devoid of parking controls. This is actually untrue, as shown by the picture up here from a lamppost in Portman Gardens, clearly stating that we have restrictions in our street as well. So that means that the transport officer or highway engineer has based his report on inaccurate data. So moving forward now to the issue of access. Some pictures of driveways. There's 31 Sweetcroft, 35 and 39. So these are properties set back from Sweetcroft Lane, all adequately serviced by the current driveways that are there. And if you flip to the next slide, we can see there's 3 more houses which are involved here, 43, 47 and 51. All of these houses can be accessed absolutely sufficiently from the current access point they have on Sweetcroft Lane. And moving to the next point, just to show, 2 years ago there was a JCB digger that was used by the applicant on the site, easily accessed by Sweetcroft Lane. So no issues of access with the property. So moving forward to our next slide, slide number 9. The main issue here is that 51 Sweetcroft Lane is one of 6 properties currently perfectly adequately served by long access driveways. There's no justifiable requirement to make the access route via Portman Gardens other than a simple desire by the developer. 51 Sweetcroft Lane is a bridgehead property, and granting access via Portman Gardens will set an unwanted precedent. Bridgehead intentionally used, the definition of that is a strong position secured inside enemy territory from which to advance or attack. And basically, if you grant access and approval for this application, you'll set an unwanted precedent which will mandate the applicant to purchase land from the 5 properties to the right, shown in the yellow circle over there, and continue his backland development of Portman Gardens. The residents agree that some development of the property should be carried out, but within the property, only from Sweetcroft Lane. External consultation. 32 individual objections, 16 homes petitioning against this, 44 signatures for this matter, and what we would ask is the agenda document from this meeting says putting residents first. So I'd request that matter be considered in that way. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Webrup. Councillors, do you have any questions for Mr. Webrup? No? Thank you very much. Now we go to the applicant. It's a written representation. Can you please put the timer on for me as well? And Alicia, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. A written representation from the agent. We, the architects for the proposal, and represent the applicant. Planning permission is sought to provide 2 detached family dwellings to replace the existing dilapidated building. The National Planning Policy Framework has a requirement to encourage the effective use of land and encourages the use of previously developed, vacant, underutilised sites to maximise development potential, in particular new housing. At local level, the local plan gives support to housing provision to meet and exceed the Council's minimum requirements in accordance with other policies. Whilst we were not involved with the previous applications, we have sought to carefully address all the concerns raised by the local authority and planning inspector in terms of the quantum of development, the design, layout, siting and impact the homes would have on the character and appearance of ASLC. We have worked closely with the Planning and Heritage Officer to seek an architectural proposal that continues the established development pattern, character and scale of properties along Portman Gardens. Following the original submission, amendments to the roof form, windows and removal of balconies had been made. The existing narrow and long access from Sweetcroft Lane would be closed and new access provided by extending the existing highway at Portman Gardens. The highway engineer has confirmed the principle of the new access, car park layout, cycle parking and servicing are all acceptable and they do not raise any safety concerns. The 2 on-plot car parking spaces proposed reflect the existing pattern of the other dwellings along Portman Gardens. The proposed much-needed family housing are sympathetic to the prevailing character of the area and established pattern of development. The density of the proposal is less than the optimal density within the guidance stated, but respects the historic character and appearance of the ASLC. The internal layouts comply and exceed the floor area standards set out in the local policies and provide dual-aspect living with generous and spacious gardens in excess of 300 square metres. There would also be a landscape buffer around the side elevations to create a pleasant separation distance between the new and existing dwellings. The planning officer's report confirmed the development would not result in any concerns relating to the loss of privacy, daylight or sunlight to any of the neighbouring properties. The planning officer's report also states the proposal would not result in unacceptable harm to the ASLC, the street scene, neighbouring amenity or the highway network, and would comply with the relevant local planning policies. We therefore ask you to support the local authority recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. That was well mentioned. I also have Councillor Yarrow here to speak. When you're ready, you know the rules, so you're warned. You've got 3 minutes. Off you go.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I have to say that I'm more used to sitting on the planning committees rather than addressing them. And it's certainly more stressful addressing you than it is sitting on the planning committee. This is a very emotive application which affects the lives of the residents of Portman Gardens. 15 of these concerned residents are sitting behind me. Portman Gardens is a quiet cul-de-sac, cul-de-sac being the operative word, and not a through road to other areas of Hillingdon. This application has been in front of this committee twice before and rejected, and also the appeal dismissed. I support fully the residents who signed this petition and the comments passed by the petitioner, a good analysis of the real facts. At tonight's meeting, the size of the properties has been reduced and you are being asked to consider approval. I believe there is more to consider than just the size or number of the properties. This council has a policy of back garden grabs, which we don't like. However, this application appears to tick all the approval boxes. However, I ask you to consider the longer term and understand that once the door is open by this kind of garden grab, others will follow, using this application as proof of acceptability. There are 5 other properties which have been mentioned earlier awaiting in the wings for this to be accepted, and further extensions of Portman Gardens will take place if this application is approved tonight. I have to say that if I was sitting where you are, I would request that 2 things should happen. 1, a site visit should be arranged to check on the way in which cars can already travel down the existing pathways. 2, a clear statement as to the tree preservation orders on the remaining 5 potential properties. If these are robust, then the further extension to Portman Gardens will be blocked and will not be allowed. If the committee do not think a site visit will be beneficial to this decision making, then I request you defer the decision until the tree preservation orders are determined and proved to be robust. I really can't see why the existing entry roads cannot be used in Sweetcroft Lane and stop this disruption to the lives of those in Portman Gardens. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Yarrow. As usual, well spoken. Thank you very much. Before we go any further, I'd like officers to come back on some of those. There's been a theme here, obviously, about Precedent and stuff like that. Can you just address the committee and let them understand those things?
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, members. I'm going to take the points in the order that I've written them down. So the first point that I noted down was regarding the petitioner's referral to policy DMH6, which is regarding backland development. So the petitioner was quite correct in terms of there is a particular criteria in relation to character. So let me just find it. Yeah, so development on backland sites must be more intimate in mass and scale and lower than frontage properties. So that's quite correct. My comment in relation to that, so obviously that policy deals with a whole sort of spectrum of backland type developments. What we're looking at here, I think, is sort of slightly different in the fact that it would extend a cul-de-sac. So it's not the same as some other types of backland development where they would have no frontage, if you see what I mean. So I think my own view is that the character and the layout and the design is acceptable in this particular case. You know, I accept that the petitioner will disagree with that. And just while we're on that policy, it's been mentioned about, you know, why can't the site be accessed from Sweetcroft Lane? There is a specific criterion in here which is relevant to that. So the policy specifically says that access roads between dwellings and unnecessarily long access roads will not normally be acceptable. So I thought it was useful to highlight that point. So just moving along my list, obviously we've discussed and heard about impact on the area of special local character, and that's a key issue, members, that you'll need to consider. I thought it might be helpful just to point out what the MPPF says about considering the impact on non-designated heritage assets. Just bear with me. So paragraph 203 states that the effect of an application on the significance of a non-designated heritage asset should be taken into account in determining the application. In weighing applications that directly or indirectly affect non-designated heritage assets, a balanced judgment will be required having regard to the scale of any harm or loss and the significance of the heritage asset. So we've heard a summary, and you've seen in your reports what the Conservation Officer has said. Officer's assessment is that, you know, as the Conservation Officer has pointed out, there is proposed here a subdivision of the plot, so there would be some harm, and that does need to be taken into account. But Officer's view is that the layout and design would represent an extension of Portman Gardens, and we feel that we couldn't justify a refusal on that ground. Just turning now to the issue of precedent, my feeling on this is that essentially, if you feel that this application is acceptable in its own right, then we should be approving the application. We do need to look at each application as it comes forward on its own merits, and we've heard about trees and the TPOs. I can confirm that the whole area is covered by a TPO. So it's not necessarily the case that it would open the door to other sites, because, for example, there could be trees sort of in the way that are important and would need to be protected. I think finally from me, just regarding the issue of a site visit, from my own perspective, I feel that we have enough information before us to make a decision, but members, it will be for you to consider that point, and if you feel strongly that you need a site visit, then of course that's an option that is open to you. And I wondered whether it might be helpful to discuss the highways point that was raised.
Alan, would you like to take that up?
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that sadly there is an error in the report and there are parking restrictions on the Portman Gardens. However, that does not change Officer's recommendation. There are no highway objections to this development. Indeed, the parking restriction runs from 11 a.m. to midday. It's in place to deter all-day parking by commuters. So the issue of parking stress has really already been addressed. And again, apologies for the error in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Alan, thank you very much. Okay, with that information that's come before you, hang on a bit, I will come to you, don't worry. That was come before you. I think most of those questions have been answered to you as committee members. So it really is down to you. Long gone are the days where I can influence anymore. I'm just here to keep you all in check and make sure we run smoothly. You've indicated, Councillor Kaufman, so...
Yes, thank you, Chairman. After listening to all the speakers tonight, including the officers, I actually feel that I need to know a little bit more about this, and I don't think you can actually do this by actually reading reports, etc., etc. So I would propose a site visit to get a real feel for this and what the petitioners are actually saying. So, yeah, I actually propose that we go for a site visit, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I propose we've been down this road before on this committee, so I'm making sure that you're proposing a site visit that you will all attend. Okay? So, who is seconding that? Councillor Morse.
Yeah, basically, I think the appeal decisions actually approved the intensification of the use of the site, and obviously the design of the building now complies.
Yeah.
However, I'm quite happy to investigate because I think I want to understand if Councillor Yarrow has got a point.
Okay, fine. So it's been proposed and seconded a site visit. I will then ask all other members to indicate whether they wish to do that. Please show your hands. So we've had all, actually he's put his hand up, so it's unanimous that we'll have a site visit. So the state of execution has been delayed for another time. I would make petitioners aware that you will not be able to speak again when it comes back to committee unless you have a new petition. So if you're going to do that, you'll have to make sure you do that. And be warned that obviously there is not many reasons here, there's no reason here for refusal. So this is this is the committee's wish to do that, but we'll come back next time around. So as far as I'm concerned, that's been decided, and we will move on to the next item. Councillor Morgan.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just before we continue, could I just ask officers to actually speak into the microphone? Yeah. I am a little bit mutton, and I find it very difficult to follow what you're saying. Thank you.
He said he's mutton Jeff, which means he's deaf. But Cockney's not speaking. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Yarrow.
Can you give us a moment to get out of the
I was going to suggest that if you could all leave very quietly, as we do have an agenda to continue. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Committee, please be aware that I will be taking a register of those attending the site visit, and I will be publishing that out when I come to this next meeting. Okay? Katie, can you continue, please, for the next item, which is item 8. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chairman. So the next item is at 56 Swan Road in West Drayton. It's for a single-storey rear extension and part first floor rear extension. Let me just show you the drawings where we're going. So this is the existing dwelling here. And so what we're doing is we are proposing a first floor rear extension here and a single story rear extension on the rear here. And also to the, that's the proposed elevations. Also to the front, you'll see here that they're replacing double doors with a single door. And this is the rear elevation where you can see the single story element and then the first floor element here. Yes, the reason officers recommend that the application be approved. The referral reason is it's a petition item with 25 signatures and 2 representations. The matters raised are outlined and addressed on page 50 of the reports pack. However, these largely concern separate planning enforcement matters and the use of the site as an HMO. For clarity, this application is not for an HMO use, but for extensions to the dwelling. I would also like to draw to members' attention there's an addendum to this report. It details subsequent representations that have been received since the publication of the committee report and the officers' response. So in summary, officers consider that the extensions would appear suitably subservient to the design of the dwelling and hence the amenities of the area, particularly given the existing examples of similar development adjacent. And due to the modest scale and separation distances from neighbouring properties, the extensions would not harm neighbouring residential amenity. So I'll just go through some site photos as well. So it's a bird's eye view. This is the front of the dwelling. They have, you can see that they've done a roof conversion at the top there. This is the door, the double doors that's going to be replaced with a single door, if approved. And this is the rear of the property, garden. And this is just a bird's eye view of the surrounding area. So you can see similar, there's a first floor extension there. Another neighbouring has a first floor, a two-storey rear extension here, and a roof extension as well. So it's just to give an indication of the types of neighbouring development. And this is just a photo showing the neighbouring part single, part two-storey rear extension that's being proposed, similar to the one being proposed at this site. So accordingly, the proposal complies with the aims of the local plan and is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. Okay, we have objections by James Packhead. Yes, you spoke before, so you know the rules. I won't have to repeat myself, and off you go.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, being the lead petitioner, I thank you for the opportunity to present to you my objections to the proposed further rear extension to 56 Swan Road. This planning application is not a true representation of what has already been built, nor what the applicant intends to build. At the planning meeting on the 4th of August, when I was not permitted to speak, consent for the previous application for the single-storey width extension was granted on the premise that the council be able to gain control of the property. Since then, the applicant has deviated from the two previously approved planning applications, demolished the original two-storey outrigger before applying for permission, and breached other planning rules. Image 1, please. This shows the steel beam in situ on the 16th of September with the intention of building a second storey without approval. The steel beam is closer to the boundary of my property than the original outrigger wall. As the original outrigger was 3.6 metres wide, then the first floor extension must be wider than this, and not the 3.25 metres as stated on the application. The erroneous dimensions on the submitted drawings bring into question the strict adherence to the 45-degree rule. Image 2, please. This shows the flank wall of the already constructed single-storey extension. Looking up the building line, it is obvious, even without measurements, that the outer skin of the extension is built on my land when comparing with the new round ridge tiles which cover the junction of the two roofs. The plans that were submitted with application reference 1143, single-storey rear extension, showed the flank wall as being entirely within the curtilage of number 56. The proposed plans for the application under consideration also show this as being the case, and also to include any roof overhang. Clearly, the newly built structure contravenes the approval that was granted on the 6th of August and shows the applicant's inclination to deviate from any approved plans. Similarly, scant regard has been taken of the conditions in the planning consent in regard to materials which should have matched existing and non-adherence to the regulated hours of work. The case officer refers to 60 Swan Road as a precedent. However, that extension has been built entirely within curtilage of its own land, and the original dwelling was much smaller in size. The proposed extension at number 56 will oversail at 58's land, as the alley between the two properties is wholly owned by 58 and is also much narrower, less than 2 metres, than the other alley. Furthermore, number 60 is now 2 flats and adjoins an undertaker on one side and a takeaway food shop on the other side, so there are no residents affected. Image 3, please. Hillingdon's policy DMHB 11 requires development to be designed to the highest standards and incorporate principles of good design. The foundation trench dug to the rear of number 56, exposing the lateral sewer pipe, together with the inspection chamber located under the boundary fence with number 58. Concrete was poured into this trench, and within 2 days several layers of bricks were laid in an attempt to conceal these deficiencies. Image 4. The inner skin wall of the extension is clearly situated on top of the shallow depth of concrete and directly above the sewer pipe, with the inspection chamber being partly inside the new extension, both contrary to Thames Water regulations. The extension wall is sitting on potentially inadequate foundations and now would be expected to bear the weight of another storey. Image 5, please. On August Bank Holiday Monday, the applicant and his supporting gang used a mechanical digger and a sledgehammers for over 2 hours to smash up the rear patio, just one instance of the flouting of permitted working hours. There is continual intimidation directed at me by the applicant, especially whilst collecting signatures for this petition. The apparent improvement to number 56 has effectively blighted number 54. You must make the choice between what is right and what is easy. Should you approve these plans, you are effectively giving this developer carte blanche to do as he pleases with impunity. I thank the committee for considering the points I have raised.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Does any councillors have any questions? Yeah, Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Chairman. Is this breach of the previous planning permission subject to planning enforcement action at all?
Yeah, this is where the ground gets a little bit thing. This is a building control issue, not a planning committee issue, okay? Officers will come back to you and ask you that. Am I right, or do you want to have that?
Yeah, I could add at this point, there is an enforcement case open on this site. I think from what we've seen in the recent correspondence, there's probably additional issues that the enforcement team needs to look into, and we'll make sure that gets passed on. But it's important to separate out these enforcement matters from what we're looking at here, which is the planning application for the extension. It wouldn't be reasonable to refuse permission because the applicant hasn't adhered to, previous permission or to conditions.
Councillor Barton, you want to come up?
Sorry, I'm a little confused.
This is a chance to ask the applicant any questions. We can open this fully on the floor when I come to it, okay? Has anybody else got any questions for the actual applicant? No? Okay, fine. Thank you very much for your time. We go now to sorry, that was the objection. The applicant, I've got two names here. Dinga. Is that right? Thank you.
Good evening to Chairman and all members of Planning Committee and members of public. This statement is in support of planning application submitted for 56 Swan Road. The application is for single-story rear extension and part two-story rear extension. Kindly note the single-story rear extension follows the same footprint which has already been approved under the previous planning application and is currently under construction. So the main element of consideration is the part first floor rear extension. The proposal has been designed very carefully to comply with Hillingdon Council residential extension policies, that is DMHD1, DMHB11, DMHB12 and other relevant policies. Main points for ground floor extension: the proposed extension extends 3.6 meters from the rear elevation wall of the main dwelling house, therefore doesn't have any overbearing to adjoining semi-detached house at 54 Swan Road and on the other side 58 Swan Road, sorry. Flat roof of the single-story rear extension help to mitigate any overshadowing impact because with the low eaves. Main points for consideration for part two-story rear extension are: proposal doesn't reach 45-degree line of vision from the nearest first floor bedroom windows, so doesn't have any impact on access to light and outlook from the habitable rooms of neighboring properties. There are no side windows proposed, so the proposal doesn't cause any overlooking concern for either neighboring property. Proposed roof of part two-story rear extension replicate the angle of the main roof, thereby protect the street's visual amenities. Proposal retains existing off-street parking, so complies with DMT6 policy of adopted local plan. Planning officer has assessed the application of proposed extension against residential extension policies and rightly concluded the proposed part single, part two-story rear extension would not detract from existing character of the area, would be a proportionate addition to the dwelling, would not result in harm to neighboring amenities, and would retain good level of internal living conditions. Lastly, we would also like to draw your attention that similar extensions have already been approved and built at 29 Swan Road, 35 Swan Road, 41 Swan Road, 60 Swan Road. So the proposal would be in keeping with its surroundings. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We also have a written response from one of the councillors, Councillor Sweeting. Can you do the timer, please, Anisha, as well, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Dear Chairman and other members of the Minor Applications Planning Committee and Planning Officers, I am forwarding you an email which I have received from Mr. Aker, the lead petitioner, regarding planning application 76289-2021-3191, re 56 One Road, West Drayton, which is due to be considered by the Minor Applications Planning Committee on the 2nd of November. As I am not able to attend the Minor Application Planning Committee next Tuesday, I respectfully ask the committee to consider the comments which Mr. Aker had provided, which explains in some details the inaccuracies of the plan submitted compared with the evidence provided and reported on by the planning officer within the planning report, as well as my supporting comments detailed in this submission. I fully support the residents' petition, as the application, as well as the previous application, has been dealt with by the applicant in a way which has been unnecessarily unnecessarily aggressive and which has seriously impacted on neighbours, as it would seem that no notice has been taken by the applicant of the rules relating to approved and yet to be considered planning applications. As evidence of this, I bring to the notice of committee members all of the 3 attached photographs. They've been circulated. The first photograph shows that work to build the extension, which is the subject of this application, has already started prior to any planning permission being obtained. At one point, the back of the house was open to the elements, whilst the new lintel to the proposed upper storey was put in place. The second photograph shows that the attached single-storey extension on which the committee granted permission has encroached on the land of the neighbour at number 54, as it would appear that the outer skin of the extension has been built on land at number 54. This is explained in some detail in Mr. Aiken's attached email. The third photograph was taken showing that work on the site was being undertaken on August Bank Holiday Monday, once again not in compliance with the rules which were set in respect to the single-storey rear extension by the Minor Application Committee in August. It should also be noted that information provided by Mr. Aiken confirmed that the applicant has not adhered to the necessary party wall agreements in respect to any of the developments to number 56, which have been considered by officers and members, including the conversion of the roof space which was allowed under permitted development. There are further issues which Mr. Aiken has sent to me by way of a further email, which I will also forward to the committee, which highlight other concerning issues which I ask for the committee to consider. Finally, I would point out that no reference has been made to the inadequacies of the parking to the property. The 2 parking spaces mentioned are in fact only possible by vehicles mounting the pavement to access the second space and also crossing over a designated residence parking space. So what we have in respect to parking capacity on site is only 1 workable space and not 2. I therefore respectfully ask the committee that no decision is made in respect to this application until the points raised in both my email and Mr. Aiken's email are investigated and accurately reported to this committee. I thank the committee for considering my comments.
Thank you, Nisha. Well done. Right, before I go to the floor, let's make it quite clear. Some of these issues that we've seen before us are not planning committee's remit. Okay, so that's the thing. The first application has been approved, which is the single story. So we are looking now just at the extension on top of the single story. So I will open to the floor. Councillor Brightman, obviously you didn't finish what you were trying to finish, so I'll let you go first, and then I've got Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's been answered through the course of conversation that it's nothing to do with planning permission. It's more to do with building regulations and Thames Water regarding building over their sewer or whatever it is they've done.
Councillor Brightman. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We can only go by what's been put in front of us. And until I saw the pictures, I was quite happy with what had been proposed because there's nothing that we could pick up on. However, could the officers confirm if the plans are correct in respect of have the plans been taken, have the plans been done on the new building line that the applicant has used, or is it still on the existing line? The reason I'm asking is that obviously if he's used the new line, then it's out of sync with the rest of the property, and I would find it very difficult to support it. However, if it is in line, then we need to make sure that our officers, our inspectors, make sure that it's built in line and not out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Before I was going to say something, but the legal officer is going to get you, not me.
Not get, try to assist. Try. What's pertinent here is that the boundary dispute between the neighbours is something that needs to be escalated privately. It's not something that the local planning authority can decipher and get involved in. It's not a material planning consideration, and they would need to take their own remedy action as to what the boundary is correct. As it stands, the application's been assessed on that current boundary as is, and it hasn't been debated in any other forum such as the courts or with an injunction. So we should deal with it as it is before us. Well, not myself, members.
I couldn't have said it better, Kerry. I mean, obviously. Sorry, I didn't mean get, but the point that I was going to get across, I think, is the thing. Yeah, that's a civil matter. It's enforcement action and stuff like that. So please just keep within what our regulations are. Councillor Morgan, you want to come back?
No, it's just to say thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one quick point, and this was raised by the petitioner here, and that was the foundations or concerns over the foundations.
Again, it's not a planning issue. That's a building regulations issue. Okay, so they have to take that to building regs, not to us. Okay?
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, Councillor Wahid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the report says, not, but how would this have impact on the neighbouring property number 54 in terms of losing daylight sunlight?
As you were at the last site visit, you realised that the sun comes from the front of the house over to the back, so it doesn't affect. There is no overshadowing. The overshadowing is a natural overshadowing of the properties themselves. Okay.
I would like to move with the officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much. So I have a proposer. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan, thank you. You second it. Those all in favour with officer's recommendation with the addendum, please indicate. That is indicated unanimously, so that is going with officer's recommendation for approval. Okay. Thank you very much. We now come off part petition items and we go back to the normal agenda, which is item number 9, which is 98 Lansbury Drive, Hayes. Katie?
Great, thank you, Chairman. So this item is for a change of use from a tyre fitting centre to a mixed-use tyre fitting and MOT test centre. The reason for referral is that it's a sui generis use class. So it becomes sui generis because of the addition of the MOT testing centre. So no representations have been received in opposition to the proposal. However, due to the use class, that's why it's before committee today. So these are the plans here. That's the existing site plan. This is a picture of the premises. So the proposed change of use would be facilitated by an internal reorganisation of the space to create an MOT testing bay and customer viewing area. Externally, a new pedestrian access door is proposed to the existing shop front, which would be fitted with a roller shutter. 3 roller shutters enclosing the vehicle bays are to be altered to include acoustic curtains, plus the addition of pedestrian doors and windows to 2 of the shutters. An existing roof over the vehicle workshop is to be replaced with insulated roof panellings. The height of the roof is to remain as existing. So these changes would assist the mitigation of noise impacts and be an improvement on the existing situation. The proposed change of use and associated physical alterations would support the operation and expansion of the existing business and would have an acceptable impact on the character and visual appearance of the area. Mitigation measures proposed are considered to address previous reasons for refusal relating to noise and highway safety / parking. As such, the proposal is recommended for approval subject to conditions. And I'll just go through just quickly the elevations. You can see that on the photos. You can see the changes are on this part, just a reorganisation of the internal space. External, existing, or proposed, sorry, a couple more. There we go, and there's just some more site photos. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And obviously there's an addendum to this as well, if members can be aware of it. The photo, well, there you are. That's a better photo. You can actually see it. The other one was behind the tree. So, Councillor Wahid, you want to take me away first, and then Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although sometimes it's very intimidating when they have a double row of cars parked alongside. And of course, there will be a noise to some extent, but it's acceptable. I would like to move.
Thank you very much. This will actually, I think, this new development will actually reduce noise. It should do anyway. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to second the proposal. I just want to know what that is that's at the back of the shop. That looks like a lean-to or something that's been built up there. Looks odd.
Okay, we'll have a look at that. We go back to the back picture. The one before, I think, was the one we saw. Yeah. Yeah, it's the canopy over to the door to the flat. Yeah. Oh.
The canopy's not actually in the shown on the plans.
But hopefully it'll be removed then. Make sure it's removed. Is that in the? It's not in the plans, is it? Let's just double check that. I will come to you, Councillor Morse. Don't worry. I haven't forgotten you. It's not there anymore, is it? It's not. Yeah, so it's not. So we make that part of the conditions to make sure that is removed, yeah? Okay, fine. All right, that's even better. So what we will do on that item, on that, we'll get enforcement involved and see whether it should be there or not. Okay? Councillor Morse.
One of the concerns that I got was this concept that the appointment system solves the traffic problem, because the tyre replacement will continue. All you've got is additional work by the MOT program. Well, that is actually an appointment system. And I don't actually completely understand how that solves the actual car movement issue. What I would ask of officers, is it possible that we could have an informative or something which slightly more controls this other act? Because we have not removed from this process, when we say we solve the actual fact that the tyre replacement work will be there, and all we're doing is we're putting in more. And this particular location, I believe, Councillor Peer will support me, is very much close to traffic lights.
Okay. Rose, would you like to come out?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I mean, we would agree that this potentially is going to increase the traffic to the site, and the Highway Authority in their comments have acknowledged that. What they've asked us to secure is some additional fencing around the site perimeter, which will greatly increase safety of pedestrians. So we're accepting essentially that there would be more traffic, and we've secured some mitigation. There is a separate condition, however it concerns noise, where we've asked for them to submit the details of an operational sort of management plan or a strategy. And as part of that, we would be looking for things like, using the appointment system to try and minimise disturbance and things. You could, if you felt it was important, include in the reason or in the wording of the condition that you also wanted to sort of minimise trips. But I don't think it's necessary. I think the mitigation we've got in terms of the fencing is sufficient to address the issue.
Councillor Morse, you look puzzled, but I will go on. Councillor Borough, you want to add something?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd just like to echo what my colleague said. I have visited this area many, many times over the years, and it is a very, very busy junction. And if we are to prove for MOT, then obviously we are asking for more traffic down there. And due to pedestrians and, I think we need to really look into it before we make a decision.
I don't agree with that, but that's up to you guys to decide that. But I think that the condition that Rosa stated is quite, can we sort of tweak it so it covers those concerns? Because you can see that by the curtilage itself that a lot of the cars are off-site and waiting for MOT. So, the tyre. Is that okay?
Yeah, so what we'd be suggesting then is condition number 7, So it says, prior to the first use of the application site as an MOT test centre, an operational management plan shall be submitted to the local planning authority for approval in writing. The plan shall set out the measures that will be taken to minimise noise and disturbance impact to neighbouring residents. So what I would intend is to add an additional bit onto the end of that to say that it would be looking to minimise vehicular trips through management of the site, or some suitable wording along those lines. I mean, I would just reiterate, it has been carefully considered by the Highway Authority. There was a previous refusal on highways grounds, and the Highway Authority, having looked at it and considered the additional mitigation in the form of the fencing, are satisfied with it. So I do feel that we've given it a good and thorough consideration, and that it is, we couldn't support a refusal of planning permission on highways grounds.
Alan, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very satisfied that with the provision of the new fencing, vehicles visiting the business won't overspill, well, they won't be able to overspill onto the highway. The capacity of the site would be regulated, and with the modification to the condition, there would be no highway objections to the proposal.
Fine.
Thank you, Chairman.
What I suggest, and it will calm Councillor Mawson-Berra, is that can we put MOT and tyre, so that we're covering the MOT appointments and the tyre appointments. That way you can manage the situation. I think that actually gets to the nook of the cranny and actually answers those questions. Is that all right?
I understand what you mean. Yeah, makes sense.
Thank you. Councillor Brian.
Thank you, Chairman. Is there any particular special storage for tyres there? Because at the moment they're currently behind the premises. They're doing this anyway, so planning permission's a bit of a moot point. But the tyres have created, or there's been fires with those tyres behind there before. I just wonder if the fire brigade have been consulted at all to make sure that they're stored safely.
I will hand over to Ros, because I don't know.
We haven't consulted them because it sort of doesn't tick the box as a sort of normal consultee for this one. And what I would add is they're already doing the tyre fitting. So I take your point about that issue, but what they're looking to introduce wouldn't sort of worsen that. There is, just to sort of look on the plan here, it's very difficult to see, but there is a specified tyre storage area. So they're certainly not losing space inside, which is designated for that. That might be a separate matter that they are storing them outside.
I am proposed and seconded, so I'm going to go to the vote. I think we've really this to death, really flogged it to death. So all those in favour with officers' recommendations, with the addendum and the slight change that I asked to put in tyre and MOT. So that's 1, 2, 3. Yep, that is unanimously agreed with those changes. Okay, to the last item of the evening, which is item 10. Katie, do you want to...
Thank you, Chairman. So the final item on tonight's agenda is...
Sorry, just before we start, Councillor Coffey, can you leave the room, please? And can you also make sure that Councillor Coffey's vote wasn't adhered to on that last application? Yeah. As he left the room when we were debating it. Go ahead, Katie.
So the final item on tonight's agenda is the installation of new front boundary treatment at 54A Edwards Avenue. So this is the site here. This is the proposed fencing. So specifically it's brick wall at the bottom here with timber panelling at the top. And you'll see this is actually the neighbour's gate here, and it goes an L shape this way. You'll see it better when I show the site photos, so I'll just move on to them. So this is the fencing, the existing fencing. So it's this timber panel fencing, and you can see that it goes into an L shape this way. This is the neighbour boundary treatment. So what they're doing is they're replacing the brown timber fencing. And this is it. This is the rest of the property on the other side. So this white low brick wall would be retained. So you can see that they'd still maintain visibility, pedestrian visibility lines for the vehicle coming in and out of the site. So it's just this brown bit going this way. So if I just go back to the drawings, so it's easier to understand now that you've seen the photo. Okay. So this is the neighbour's gate, so it's just to give an indication of the height and how it is sympathetic to the neighbouring property as well. So it goes across there and that way, just like the existing timber fence that it replaces. So officer's recommendation for this is to approve. The reason for referral is that it's a member call-in. In terms of representations, 4 have been received in objection to the proposal. These principally have concerns that the property will be converted into an HMO, but this application is solely for the replacement boundary treatment. Planning permission is required because it's over 1 metre high on the frontage to a highway. So I'd also just like to raise that a subsequent representation has also been raised prior to this committee, and the concerns are to do with, if I go back to the photos, this fence along here, it's alleged that this fence has been constructed within the site that's owned by the residents here. So that's the concern. I think in terms of a planning response, this part of the scheme isn't part of this development. We're only considering this fence here. Technically, you don't need planning permission to build a fence on the side boundary up to 2 metres high. So they can construct a fence up to 2 metres, but also, as we've discussed with earlier applications in tonight's agenda, in terms of land, property law and who owns what bit of land, it's not a material planning matter, so it's a civil dispute between neighbours and not something that we can become involved in. There isn't, even though it isn't specific about this application, there is informative number 8. It just draws attention to the fact that planning permission doesn't override property rights. But as I said, we're only considering this fence here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I think that's quite straightforward, really. For us to actually put an HMO on a fence, that would be, I think, a step too far for us, really. So I have Councillor Morgan and Councillor Wahid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm going to go with officers, or propose we go with officers' recommendations. It's just a shame that, yet again, we're seeing the openness of a small road being enclosed, so we're losing that openness within a small road. But, you know, there's not a lot we can do on this.
This is more gentle than his neighbour, isn't it? So. Okay, Councillor.
I'm happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So I'm proposing the second. Can I have a show of hands to go with officer's recommendation on this item? Got it? Yeah, one. What are you doing, Councillor Morse? Are you abstaining or are you putting your hand up? Okay, fine. So that's unanimous. And we go with officer's recommendation. I'd like to say thank you all very much. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. And thank you everyone for your hard work. Cheerio.
Thank you, Chairman.